Hello, yet again. I'm interested to see what I'm going to upload next because I actually have a couple episodes that I recorded that I'm just holding on to in my pocket right now. I don't know if I'll upload them, and I like the episodes, so I can't delete them, but the second episode that I'm just sitting on is like I'm referencing that I made the first episode, and the first episode is kind of racy, and I don't want to put it up, but it was a good episode, so I do want to put it up. And so this is a conundrum that I find myself in often, and it's just part of what's so difficult. Part of what's so difficult. I mean, I'm just trying to defy everyone. I'm trying to defy everyone just to maintain who I am. I wanted to be a hero, but the world is like, no, you gotta quiet down. You can't say things that are like, I don't want to regret uploading an episode. So what I'm probably gonna do is the first episode I have, but I'm just trying to sit on an episode and manipulate things, but it doesn't matter. What I wanted to talk about today, so it's like I might upload that episode, but I might have to edit it, and so that episode is called TV, and so this is maybe a part two, and that's an intro for you. It's an intro. I looked at my Spotify podcast page recently, and I feel like I'd be rolling in the views if Spotify had, if they had a top tracks for podcasts. They only have it for artists where they're and a view count, but they don't have a view count or like the top 5 tracks for podcast pages, unfortunately. For some reason, podcasts are hard to track, like across Apple and Spotify, across all of them. They're hard to track for some reason, like the technology isn't there, because Apple's statistics are always really spotty. The only place that I get to see that I have my listens are on SoundCloud. In the event that I do upload that episode, it's just like I upload one, and then the thing that I'm doing now is contingent on whether or not I uploaded it, so I'm bullshitting myself. But like I'm telling you, maybe I go against my rule that I don't edit anything, because you gotta edit some stuff out in this world we live in, because people have visible standards for things. But like my standard there, I was going to do something more fun. My next episode, I'm going to just share my crypto portfolio with you, and then you'll know which ones that I have and what percent. I'll share with you what percent of my portfolio I have of which cryptos, and I'll let you know which ones are good to buy. And so it's better to do things that are fun, but it's like in this episode I don't want to upload. I'm still in the business of like, oh, I'm going to tear down everything in the world. And I'm just worried about uploading things. I usually don't destroy an episode before I uploaded it, but I'm just letting you know that that's the state of things. But I wanted to keep recording even though I was still being indecisive about uploading that, because there's more things to say. But then like I could maybe record a better episode when I know I have a good one. But I might not even upload it. But if I do upload it, I'll edit it. And I'm just letting you know. And then there's another one after that isn't as good. But I'm telling you if they're good or not already. I'm telling you beforehand. Okay, like I'm gonna upload this episode. It's gonna be good. But if you're hearing me now, you would that episode is already uploaded, or it should be. And it's probably edited a little bit, but it's just like I'm compelled to speak again today because I had to say something, and I would just be rolling in the views on Spotify if Spotify made it. I wonder if they make it so that you listen to related podcasts. Like my Spotify page looks real nice. That's exactly the way I want it to look. Like things are coming through real clean on Spotify, I'd say, and my listenership is great, and it's really it's great. It's better than it's ever been. I get pissed that like the podcast grows kind of slowly, but I'm just impatient. It really doesn't matter because I'm 28, and I could make this podcast for like 40 years. Like, isn't that a horrifying thought? But maybe, I mean, if you like this podcast and you're like, oh, yay, 40 more years of content, I guess. I guess that's the world we live in. I guess, like, I'm a viable, then you're like, of course. It's just, then, so that's all good. It's just that there's all those people that are angry at Aaron Rodgers, and I feel like that's most of that is a facade, and that you would go wrong to think that people angry at Aaron Rodgers, that that's the right side to take. It's just the same thing as, well, Donald Trump will never be president when Trump was running for president in 2016, because it's just a result of all these media sources, and it's all just TV. It's all just TV defined entities. The only reason that Terry Bradshaw has an opinion, like, hopefully you weren't unfortunate enough to hear one of Terry Bradshaw's latest, an opinion he has on anything, especially something political. The only reason that he is sharing political views in front of you, which is like Terry Bradshaw has opinions about Aaron Rodgers getting a vaccine, and he's like mad at him because I think he just already doesn't like Aaron Rodgers, but he's just going to go along with the herd, and it doesn't have anything. He has nothing to say. The only reason Terry Bradshaw has an opinion that he's in front of you is a result of this less than sane universe that we live in, that is living off of standards for lucidity, standards for obviousness, and in my argument, in my estimation, a standard of lucidity that is relatively less lucid than what can possibly be attained. But this is what people are getting pissed. This is what the world is presumably pissed at me for, is this mentality that there is a standard beyond the obvious standard, the standard of everybody gets a vaccine. But basically I'm saying there's a standard beyond the rectangle that is the giant rectangle that's in your house, the TV screen. And that's what I was talking about in that episode about TVs. And I'm probably, just the way I'm speaking about it now, I will probably upload it, but edit it. Okay, so this is a part 2. But then will I keep that other episode? You're gonna get all of it. You're gonna see all of what I recorded because I'm a slut and I just show it to you. I'm like, oh, I can't, that was a decent hour. I'm just a slut and I just put it all out there. But I'm gonna have to edit some things out. And I'll let you know when I edit episodes out. But they're standard, there's TVs in everybody's home, and this is just this standardized way of delivering media. It's standardized mediation for the United States of America for the last 70 years. And it's everybody who's 45 and older is offering you opinions about how Aaron Rodgers thinks that he knows better than everybody else. Like, there's all these sports analysts that are all like, Aaron Rodgers thinks that he knows everybody else. Like, all of a sudden they all decided that it was correct to turn on Aaron Rodgers, but that's because Aaron Rodgers is already in the visible world of TV screens. He's already been showing his shit to people on Fox and CBS and like his entire career is made off of being shown to people on TV screens. And so everybody who makes a career of being on TV, it now has to spit out of their mouth the outsider, and which is Aaron Rodgers. But it's like Aaron Rodgers is associated with TV the same way all of these people who have opinions about you need to get a vaccine are associated with TV. They can't have one of their own be disagreeing with them, and so now they're all going against him the same way as if it was like Mel Gibson in Hollywood. But it's just that the new echo chamber is TVs. It isn't new echo chamber is TVs rather than Hollywood or Washington, because it's all of the TV people. And then it's like I'm also including Howard Stern in this, but because Howard Stern became popular at a time when, I mean, he showed himself on late night shows at a time when late night shows were at their peak. Like, the peak of his popularity was close to the peak of cable news popularity. But Howard Stern basically makes his reputation. I mean, he does through radio, but he lives in a time gone by, the same way that everybody who's pissed about Aaron Rodgers is 45 years or older, and they're all 45 years or older and have the opinion that you have to get the vaccine because they all live in this TV world. Because basically, if you're 45 or older, your entire life has been standardized by TVs. Like, if you're 45 or older, it is more assumed that TV is where you get your information from. And that provides the standard, but literally this TV is the standard of media and is the ultimate media. Like, we go beyond the level of cable news channels themselves. I think in the last year especially, and especially in the last 5 years, we've done a lot to deteriorate the power of standardized media, where it is standardized in the image of CNN, standardized in MSNBC. You have these points of reference that offer standardized narration, and this is what people look to, that they're like, we need to have standardized narration. But we've gone past that to some degree. What we haven't gone past is standardized TV, which is just the ultimate standard that collects all media standards. The TV is the media standard, and it is in everybody's home standardly. It is like it's a standard in terms of furniture. Like, it's standard in the way that it's defined the American living room for 70 years. But especially for people who are 45 years and older, they all seem to have the opinion that, or like, they get to operate off of the assumption that everybody should get a vaccine, or that, like, there's all these sports analysts that are old guys that are all united saying that Aaron Rodgers thinks he knows better than everybody else. Like, these are sports analysts that are supposed to have varied opinions and analyze things. They apparently threw all of that out the window, because now they're just saying that their lens for analysis is just the TV screen, because they're saying, because TVs say you need to get vaccines, that of course everybody knows to get a vaccine, or like that Aaron Rodgers going outside of the standard of a TV is completely, like, makes him wrong right away. But the only reason you think that everybody needs to get a vaccine, or that everybody's on the same page with that, is because that is the consistent message across all TV channels and across all TV figures like Terry Bradshaw or Colin Cowherd or Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless and all of them. And they're aligning themselves with CNN news anchors, anybody who makes their name off of TV, anybody who's like a standardized image like Terry Bradshaw on TV channels. They all are of this same opinion, but they've created this echo chamber, and it's just everybody who's associated with TV. And it's basically like you would come to somebody who said, I didn't get a vaccine, and the complaint is the people who don't get a vaccine, that they're doing research, or that they think that they know too much. Like, the people who are doing the research, this is the route you're not supposed to take, according to the standard of television. Because I'd say that people only get a vaccine because TV is telling them to. Because we live in this world still somehow where people haven't learned their lesson, that when the TV is telling you across all channels, Trump will never be president, and we all know that he's wrong for what he did, and the morality, he is so morally bankrupt that we as a country would never elect him president. That's just consistency across TV messages, and they're wrong. And then for the next 3 years after that, the TV comes out with that Trump colluded with Russia, and it was a hoax, that he even won, and the TV was lying to you at every level. But like, the world is so afraid of moving on from the standard of a TV, because what world is that at that point, especially for people that are older, who their whole life is defined, the narrations that they hear are just from TV screens. Their whole life is dictated to them by TV, to such a full extent. And also, they're not willing to admit that, but basically, this is the reflection, it's the result of a country that can't move on past a world where TVs take the responsibility for narrating our lives and for mediating them. But it's like this is just the crux that we come to, and at this crux you can see that all of the TV related people like Stephen Colbert and all of them have the exact same messages. It's pretty easy to define that they're all on the same page for this vaccine. But like, we just come to this point in human history where we graduate to more diversified TV than the standard of giant square TV in your room, in your house. Like, not that you wouldn't continue to have it. It's just that, and it's not like, it's not TV for everything, because everybody plays video games on TV, and it's not like the video game market shares all the same messages as like cable news. So I guess I'm really talking more about cable sources, but all these sports analysts that rely on cable for them being delivered to you, they're just taking the stance that cable has taken, that TV has taken. And basically the stance is just that TVs are correct ultimately. And I'm saying that with the opinion that if you got a vaccine, it's just because the TV is telling you to. And there's this movie called Await Further Instructions that is directly related to what I'm talking about, but it just shows how, it gives credit to that people would do anything as long as the TV was saying it. But like, because in reality, there's no reason to take a vaccine besides that there's this whole like TV world of Stephen Colbert people that are like really adamant about it, and they're all in agreement. It's just that like, at this point, the world is really big enough that it would be able to shed the standard of TV, besides that everybody has a phone, and like, that's now the way that we get information more so. But like, there's this whole cable world that's fighting for its life, and like, and millennials get the vaccine a lot less, and part of that is because they're not dependent on TV and cable to mediate their lives for them. And those are some thoughts today. Those are some thoughts. I continue this monologue, but people get pissed at Aaron Rodgers, and he's saying like, because in reality, I think if you're not 45 or older, you realize that nobody would care. Nobody cares if Rodgers didn't get a vaccine, but all these sports analysts act like it's the biggest deal in the world. They also act like they're not operating off of a political opinion. And I feel like you are being political if you're taking a side with this vaccine. And all of these sports analysts and everybody, they think that they're exempt from that all of a sudden, or they don't need to analyze anything when it comes to Aaron Rodgers not taking this vaccine. They're like, you think that you know more than anybody else, when in reality, the people that get vaccines are just doing it because Stephen Colbert said it. Ultimately, like, you can tell me that that's not the case, but that's basically all that it is. And Stephen Colbert has been making his whole career off of just being on TV and then being right as a result. And people basically just listen to him because he's on TV. As long as the TV standardizes it that way, as long as CBS is held up as some sort of standard of media, is the only reason that you'd be watching Stephen Colbert. And his messages are just for the establishment and for the TV. Like, there's no reason to get a vaccine, and it's only because of the media. But if you're going to tell me, like, but it's just because of a world that refuses to graduate past TVs. It's the same world that you see that the TV lies to you forever about Russian collusion, but we're like, oh, whatever. Even though the TV is saying we should get vaccines now, they're probably right. It's because of a world that's too dependent on it. It's mostly just older people that really care about it, and that's what comes through in that it's all these older people like Howard Stern that are getting so pissed about somebody they think it's this big deal, when in reality they've just been captured by a singular political opinion of that you have to take one, which is perpetuated by TV narratives. and it's perpetuated by Twitter. It's basically like all these old people don't see around it, or like they see that Twitter is leftist and they're like, well, I guess everybody agrees. And it's the same as everybody who thought Trump would not be president. They couldn't see past that all that they held was a political view. And so they just went headlong into, well, everybody who thinks Trump could be president is a racist and the worst ever, and those are horrible people. Or like, it's just weird how quickly all these sports analysts take this political side, act like it's not political. Like, and it's a collection of TV narratives that they hear. Like, you know that the TV is part of it. They act like Joe Rogan is just all of a sudden came on the scene. Like, Joe Rogan, you know, it's the TV is just perpetuating a lot of this vaccine shit, when it's the TV that tells you Joe Rogan is the villain, and you know that a lot of that is a product of TV narrations because of how late to the game they are. They're like, all of a sudden, like, oh, there's independent media and these people spreading misinformation, acting like they're a standard of media, when Joe Rogan has been spreading misinformation for 10 years, like, consistently. Like, this has been the problem for years. And it's like it's an older generation, and like a cable news that's inept and has to wait a long time, like takes too long to receive its news, and isn't associated with the podcasting world, that would be late to the game in vilifying Joe Rogan, to be like, oh, it's Joe Rogan is saying you don't take vaccines. Like, you would have already known that was the case if you were paying attention to the world's current entertainment status in any regard. If your eyes were open at all, you would know that he would maybe be against it, and it wouldn't matter if he was or wasn't. And he's only the tip of the iceberg. Like, he's being nice about it, that you would make him out to be a villain. There's so much worse beyond the Joe Rogan level in terms of people on the right who don't like vaccines that are saying so much worse things about it. And like, Joe Rogan is so leftist through the years. For you to vilify him is just shows a lot of ineptitude, or like, because the world has already agreed that he's pretty unbiased, is why he's risen to the level he did. Like, he's already accomplished way more than you should ever be able to, in defiance of things like TV narrations and standardized narrations. That you're acting like, people are acting like they're gonna take him down for this opinion he has, when it's like, it's been that for 10 years in a row. Everybody in every clip and TV show of his on YouTube is trying to take him down for spreading misinformation. It's been this way forever. It's only an older generation that's like, doesn't even pay attention to podcasting, that's like, all of a sudden, oh, Aaron Rodgers is listening to that villain Joe Rogan, and he's like all of a sudden we realize there's alternative media or something. That's only a series of statements that could come out of TV screens and the people who make their careers off of them. So there's that too. That additionally, it's that, and Jesus is a similar thing, that people go to church that Jesus, standardized Jesus, or this thing that takes the excuse for you. Like, the country has this problem where it needs to recognize that it's in a TV show, and this is part of like what we haven't overcome. We have to recognize the amount that TV is just sitting in our life always, and we don't, and we refuse to acknowledge it, and in the same respect as get the vaccine, everybody's getting it because it's like a narration from, like, the reason that the vaccine is so important is partially because America needs to keep living in this world where cable is the most relevant thing, is why this is such a debate, because in reality you can ignore this, and the best way of ignoring it is to not get a vaccine, because don't make it your life that you got one. Like, it's a lot more it's a lot more like a snap judgment, like a shotgun wedding. I mean, it's just like a snap judgment to get a vaccine. It's a lot more damning. It's like signing a contract than not getting one, because not getting one, you still entertain the option of not getting yourself involved in this reality. And in the reality that is not like, we aren't actually stuck standardized to TVs. Like, there's a lot that we need to recognize about how much TV influences our reality. And it is to the point that we're in a TV show. And the point that I was making, yes, it's to the point that we're in a TV show. But we need to overcome that. It's just that the country wants to stay in the TV show, and by that I mean stay, not acknowledging that the TV is mediating our narration to this at this critical level. And like evidence for that is that this vaccine or not getting one thing isn't that big of an argument. I think that the easy choice is to not get one, because if you get one, then you're stuck with that. And the government is going to keep holding you to that contract. They want to anyway. They want to keep rolling out boosters so that you are defined to this set of things and this narration, where this narration is just one in a really long line of political narrations, where it's like this one has the added bonus that you sign yourself over with physical and actually getting yourself injected with a vaccine. Like in a world, what about the world that moves on, like new generations come about, and then like whatever the important issues don't involve this virus anymore, and we've graduated past the globalists that instituted this very specific thing about vaccines. Like, that's why I don't want to get a vaccine, is because the long term, it's better to not. It's just you're instantly part of that team the second you get one, and this is something that people who got one realize now, and I think that they're a little bit bitter about it, and like probably a lot of those people on TV are like, well, everybody has to, and it's just a world that doesn't want to move on. It is entertaining this virus more so by getting vaccines. Like, really, it's a world that doesn't want to move on from saying that the TV is the standardized way of media, of understanding media. And it's just like standardized mediation itself its form is the TV. And because media, it's a world that is afraid to say, okay, we get to decide on our own, because when people make decisions, they're just, in most cases, listening to voices in their head. And what I'm talking about is like God. And I think that if you really want to believe in God, you really, like, if the world, like a world that believes in God doesn't go to church, I think. And because church is standardized, like a world that believes in God, in an easier way of recognizing that God is present in our lives is that everybody just operates off of some choice they made in their head. And like in the area of being a messenger, everybody is a medium, everybody is a messenger. They're a messenger for whatever they're saying or whatever they're about to do is just some choice, arbitrary or not, that they made in their head based on some motivation they had. And a lot of it comes from just your brain. And I'd say that that's something like God, because I'm not a pessimist, I'm an optimist, and I'm not an atheist. I believe in God. And the extent of that to me is that, like, God is leading you in some direction. You wouldn't have to call it God, but you clutter it up and you complicate things with churches. You add more layers of something, filters, identities, consciousness, that muddies the waters for what's really going on. And it's the same thing as we have this medium between us and the wall in our living rooms. It's the TV, and that TV is the collector of all media. Like it's all aggregated in the TV screen ultimately, where you're like, what is consistent across CNN, ABC, and MSNBC? That's the TV is an even better description of mainstream media than any mainstream media channel is. The real mainstream media is the TV, because this is the most mainstream collective standardized media is just the screen and the way that it looks, its rectangular shape that is standard for TVs. And it's the same with Jesus. Jesus is this barrier, this filter, this identity that goes between us and the truth. Like, not Jesus so much, but a centralized, standardized opinions of Jesus where he is collected in churches. I think it prevents you, in a similar way to the TV prevents you from recognizing that when your elected officials that get there because of TV, like, the TV is your perception. Like, it's different now as cable deteriorates and gives way to the internet. The internet is more diversified media and diversified information, and so is superior, and that's why it wins against cable news, the internet. But like, we're still living in a TV world as America, and it's like there's standardized Jesus, but like the TV is going to show you Donald Trump becoming president, and then they're not going to tell you that there's all this media and all this fanfare for everybody that's being an elected official and them being in debates and whatever. A lot of their messages that are made public are tailored for TV audiences and tailored overall for the standard that's TVs provide for you. And it's like, TV is this ultimate filter where, where like it kind of, everything that goes on in the background, whatever is shown on the TV ends up on your living room anyway, where like, but recognize that the TV is not the only filter, but how many filters there are in that process for constructing agendas. And the first few are just thoughts out of the politician or CNN anchor's brains where they are filtering for what they're saying. But like, ultimately, what you need to question is, and this is what the world doesn't want to graduate to, is a world where we're just listening to God, or like a world where we're realize that where do messages come from? We think that they come from TVs, but like, TVs are just filtering out that the people that are on TV, the messages that they're saying, a lot of them are doctored for TV, but like, it's a world that presents all of this as entertainment, packages it, all of those packagings, like channels and then shows within channels, are just arbitrary filters that relatively more hide what is going on, where what I'm saying is what's going on is people are just walking around void of TV, and this is what was happening before TVs came into the picture. So people were just doing whatever, and then TVs come into the picture, they provide you all these standards of having friends and having sex and loving relationships, like, and family relationships. All these standards that are like, you're influenced by them, whether you like it or not, especially in a world that doesn't admit that like TVs are on all the time. But like, messages come from somewhere. When Donald Trump went to be president, he just was like following he wasn't watching TV, obviously, because TV would have told him, hell fucking no, you don't run for president. Like, it's just like where the messages come from. You can deny that people just have shit spoken to them in their head. Like, you can deny God, I think, or like, and obviously you can take the stance of like, well, that's not God, that's just, but what would you say otherwise? Like, you should really face that opinion, or you should have to. Do you have the opinion that things that people think in their head, that they are just random synapses and nobody should operate off of any of them? Or do you take the stance that those are meaningful things and you should follow them? Because if you're saying, because you wouldn't be able to say it was completely either way. And I would say you would especially not be able to say that they're all random synapses and you can't operate off of them, because otherwise, what are people doing in the world? Why are they walking around at all? Why are they saying anything? If like, if you're not allowed to operate off of any impulses, then don't walk around or say anything for all of the rest of your life. If you're not allowed to trust yourself. But this is like the world that people want to live in, that the TV takes all the responsibility for everything, is a world of people that say that you don't get to operate off of anything in your own head, or they want it to be that way, even though that's not reality, because everybody is making decisions every single day and going in all sorts of directions just based on choices that they've made. Like, people want to ignore, they want it to be a world where nobody has any choices, and people are pissed at, it's like when people are pissed at people for accomplishing something, and then that gives them an example that makes them feel bad about themselves for not accomplishing things, then like sometimes the reaction is just to tear down people who operate off of any sort of original thinking to make choices, and say that, well, you don't get to choose, like, because how do you know for sure? Like, but this is like, you should answer for if you are a kind of person that thinks nobody gets to know, so they don't get to do anything. Or you're like, well, people have to know something, or like messages are profound and they're leading you somewhere, or like, because world that keeps relying on TV is a world that doesn't have to answer this question for yourselves, and makes it a world where people individually don't have to answer things for themselves because the TV answers it for them. And like, you should have to answer that question. I believe that you should operate off of, because that's what anybody who's making TV, and then the TV is pissed at anybody for crossing TV narrations, like not getting a vaccine, because TV world, and TV as an entity, I mean, like, cable news world doesn't want to die, and they want all of those businesses that hitch their wagon to the economy of TV, where it's like TV is the standard, and it's kind of like a matter of currency and perception. Like, as long as the TV is this allowable, acceptable standard and appears in everybody's homes in a certain way, and everybody perceives this much amount of faith into it, then all of these channels and shows on the channels, then as long as that's the case, Colbert can continue to hitch his wagon to it, because it is a viable economy in which he has a territory of it. Like, but he doesn't exist. Like, if that territory isn't viable anymore, if like the entire economy isn't viable anymore, the entire network, but it's like some networks are better than others, and so the internet and cryptocurrency worlds are relatively better than these like centralized ones, where with TV it's centralized media. With Jesus with churches you have centralized Jesus, and people use Jesus as a shield and like the standard of a church, and the assumption that this is always a standard, or like that we can't live in a world past like the way that Jesus is standardized in churches. People use Jesus as a shield for whatever they want to say, like, well, this is what Jesus looks like, and they operate off of the narration that Jesus provides. And like, but it's like, it's the same thing. You use Jesus as the shield the same way you use the TV as a shield, to prevent you from recognizing that in the world, that messages aren't given to this elitist group. The messages are given to every single person. And that's why I'm saying individual people should all have to answer to this. Like, whether or not, and who are the best. But like, then all of a sudden you're living in a world where people who are the leaders are just the ones that are deserving of it, rather than like, because as long as you don't have to answer, like, where do messages come from? Like, are they from God? Or you don't have to answer, like, as long as we separate ourselves from that question. Like, literally, we are still all on the earth, and we don't know what happens after we die, and we don't know if there's a God or not. And it's like, we can come closer to the question if we didn't have these barriers between us. And it's like, for some people, church leads them to God, and so that's not that bad of a thing. But like, that's not really my point. That's not really my message. My message is like, you would have to answer, like, otherwise, if you don't just recognize that when Donald Trump runs for president, it's because he was listening to voices in his head, then you're saying that, like, you're acting like there's this perfect world called CNN. Like, and I know that you don't, like, everybody hates CNN now, and I'm not saying, like, people, probably most people that got a vaccine would also say, I hate CNN. Um, but they just don't, I'm saying they don't realize that ultimately you're just doing it because Stephen Colbert is visible and on TV, because the Stephen Colbert set of messages has already proven itself to be bullshit over and over and over again. The fact that he's even in front of you at all and making fun of the Aaron Rodgers of the world is because people believe it because it's on TV. And they continue to do that because they don't want to move to a world where you are just responsible for your own narration. And like, otherwise, you're imagining there's this perfect scenario where the people who have narration are something like God, where it's like, oh yeah, of course they know. That's the way that people treat it. When there's, as long as there is this standard of TV. Like, when people say, like, just get a vaccine because of whatever it is, whatever their belief is in, that they, for some reason, think they have confidence to say that, it's because they're confident in something like there's this world where whoever, like, there's this answer, and whoever is saying to get the vaccine, like, medicine is this perfect answer, or science is this perfect answer, or some news agency is a perfect answer because they are doing something other than, like, the leaders and producers of CNN are doing something other than listening to their own heads to make the choices for their programming and what their anchors are supposed to say on air and whatever. People are acting like these people that are on TV are something more than just people who hear things in their head. They act like whoever is at the head of the leadership of medical authority is more than just a person. They're something like God, like, and they're so enlightened that, like, people are acting like that there are the people for which we assume that they get messages from God. And these people are journalists and scientists. That's the world that we live in, that's operates off of this standardized TV. This world where the people who we're giving this assumption for some people, where they're like, if they did enough time as a doctor, or if they did enough time as a journalist, then they became enlightened like they were God, and that makes them different from other people. But you would be like, well, somebody has to be the standard. But I'm saying, like, the time for us to recognize any of this media, anything that comes to you from a TV as a standard, is long gone, or at least it should be. It's only sticking around because of older generations that are so dependent on TV for mediating their lives that they're not gonna, like, they can't move on. But, like, this is just pressure that we feel at this time where we're trying. I'd say the country is in the midst of trying to define itself to just all be on a TV show, and part of that is the reason why we are even under this spell of this virus. Like, literally, like, 9, I mean, it's Twitter and all of them are all saying that you should get a vaccine. And so it's difficult. You would maybe have to try harder to find media that is anti, but that's just the new political bent, is that leftism has risen to this level of visibility so much to the point that you'd have to recognize visibility to be a dividing line between what's visible and what's invisible, but, like, that's what you're saying. You're saying that rather than that we have to recognize God on our own as individuals, people want to keep living in this world where we get to make people God, and then those gods get to take all the responsibility so we don't have to do anything on our own. But it's more so a world of people that aren't going to try to create their own standard, but are just going to blindly listen to standards. But like, it's a world of people that are saying, listen to the standards rather than be one ever, because the standards know and you don't. And all the people that don't get a vaccine think that they know so much more. It's really just like, maybe we don't want to live in a world where TV runs things, because that's like literally just about to be the world. But I'd say that it's only at the point that we all start sharing to each other, hey, we're in the middle of a TV show, sort of, because that's what it is that's how we overcome this virus, I think, is like, stop listening to the media that is really at this point just dependent on a virus. It's like, this is the last thing that they're using to scare you into listening to them anymore. I mean, they need to have something to hold over you, and they've been holding shit over you for as long as they've existed, like news networks or whatever. But it's kind of like that, saying that the virus has no power will do a lot of damage, like final nail in the coffin for these CNNs and all of them that are basically using this act of God and their relationship to God to tell you that you should stay in your homes, because who knows what's out in the world. Any pandemic could come on the world and you can't control that. It's just the local news telling you to stay inside because there's a snowstorm that is currently snowing 6 inches less than what they projected. It's the same thing, and the whole thing, same way local news doesn't exist without TV. What you're seeing with all these sports analysts is just local news ass fuckers telling you to be afraid of the weather and not, but it's like people like Howard Stern, that their popularity is defined to a time when, like, Howard Stern is in relationship with David Letterman and Conan O'Brien people, and he is also somebody who's supposed to be unbiased and say things very honestly, but all of his analysis in this case goes out the window because he's defined by TV narrations ultimately. But of course he would be, because like people like this that are 45 and older, that's been their whole life. And so like, we need to stop listening to that there's this like standardization necessary. Like, people use Jesus as a shield in a similar way, where you go to a church and then, but like, people want to act like a pastor doesn't. Like, a pastor is definitely receives messages from God way more than you, is what a church is constructed around. That's what it's completely dependent on, is that the image of Jesus that's presented by a pastor came to that pastor through divine revelation. And people treat news the same way. Like, what comes on through TV is, people think that it has to be divine revelation some amount, and it would be hard to say that it wasn't to some degree, because of the capability of the people that put it in your living room. Like, that's difficult. You couldn't make that happen on your own. There is something divine revelation about people who are able to broadcast this and bring it to you, and then the people who end up actually on the screen on the other side, but like, that these people aren't just saying shit and doing shit off of whims and off of what they want. This is the same with the pastor of a church, but you're making the assumption that what goes on in the mind of a pastor is this completely different reality, where like the messages, like, where they have the utmost confidence in what they say, or that like you would never distrust them because what they said is from God. And like, the podium that they've been given is constructed around this perception. But it's like with a TV gives you the perception. We don't want to graduate to a world where we don't want to admit that there's alternative religions, and that taking drugs is like those provide you actual religious experiences, like similar to the kinds of things that churches talk about. But we we're afraid of moving out of the world. And you know, what I'm saying is the world is decentralizing anyway. Like, you're going to lose if you're afraid of going off of the standard of TV narrations, because it will become destandardized. And like it's just Jesus, the pastors of, it's a perception that the TV is not just the collector of all media and then therefore like the standard of mainstream media, that shape. It is the standard of perception. There's a world that doesn't want to graduate to diversified and destandardized perceptions, because perception brings into light, like, you're under the influence of a drug, you are under the influence of a different perception. And even to the extent that time plays out slower or faster it could be a drug, or alcohol is the same way. Like, time moves faster if you're drunk, or if you're having fun. It's like fun is its own perception, but ideas offer different perceptions, and every word is really a different world where all of the things under the umbrella of that word are connected. Words are worlds, really, where it's like everything that is defined to that word is like the frequency presented. I mean, it's just that world is only presented at the point that there is that word for it, that you get that any feelings or character traits associated with the word is only the world where any of that happens is only introduced to you by the word. And basically every word is a different world. And what people don't want to live in is like a world where we have to admit that lucidity is not standardized, is that lucidity is subjective, because we need for the TV to govern perception. Like, we can't all be on our own, because that would be madness or something. But like, unfortunately, this is what is true about the world anyway. Everything is a media. Everything is a medium. Everything is a messenger. A person, like I said in one of these episodes, messenger between what they receive and then what they say. And everybody is a medium, and this truth already flies in the face of standardized media. And everybody offers their own perception, and and it's just that what we will graduate to is a world that doesn't standardize perception to be one thing. And it's really like you're getting into the territory of everything is money, everything is currency, because everything is a perception. It's kind of like at the point that you destandardize perception, then you are just saying that perceptions are currencies, because at some point, if perception is destandardized, then you're just operating off of what groups, locally, groups larger or smaller, are saying temporarily for like a moment in time. Like, this group says this, and so there's relevance and currency there. But like, what you're seeing in the world is a breakdown of perception, destandardization of perception in these areas where groups are getting smaller, where things are just getting less defined. That's what is the result of a decentralized world. And at that point, you're just you're going to have to equate perception to be something like money, where it's relevance, but like, you can con people into giving you money by saying there's this thing called TV, and it is only through TVs that our lives get to be narrated, and that you can know what is new and what isn't, and who is funny and who isn't. And this is a con that we are evolving past. But it's like TV is a cryptocurrency, and it's a network like an Ethereum that houses all of these other tinier cryptocurrencies, relevances, perceptions. They're like, CBS only gets to remain constructed because of a collective construing of events across a number of people that perceive it to be real and perceive it to be a real constructed point of reference, and it stays as that and it literally exists that way in the world because CBS has facilities everywhere, but then the bandwidth of its channel is defined, is constructed to be this bandwidth as opposed to these other bandwidths, and then it's given and it has a certain name, but it has to hitch its way into the economy of a TV. Like there's a whole economy that is just CBS, where all of the TV shows and then like the cast and crew of an individual TV show has to hitch its wagon to the CBS standard. And so CBS is an economy just for CBS shows, but then TV is an economy for all of the channels in the same way, in like the same correspondence. But really it's like TV is an Ethereum that is a network where Ethereum houses all of these lesser cryptocurrencies, where it's like TV is housing How I Met Your Mother and whatever else is on CBS. And a quick question for you. Would you rather peel the skin off of your eyeballs or watch the CBS like comedy lineup, Sunday night comedy lineup, or whatever day that they have it? Which would you rather do? That's a tough decision, I think. You're going to have to think for a while about that one. That's a head scratcher. But Ethereum is this economy, but Ethereum is like the cryptocurrency you'd want to invest in because of how many other cryptocurrencies are dependent on it. It would be like your opportunity to invest in TV itself over just CNN or something. Like ultimately that is what's important about Ethereum. It has so much utility because of how vast it is. But Jesus is like a cryptocurrency. It's like it's this encrypted phrase, and if you look it up on Wikipedia, it only has 80,000 different meanings that are slightly related to the term Jesus. Like it's this encrypted, is very encrypted phrase. Like it's a word that's lasted forever, and people use it like currency. They use it like money for themselves. Like they stake their reputation in it, they hide behind it, but like churches, and like it's not their intention, they're trying to get money, but like churches peddle this is a cryptocurrency that they use. But people don't, like Jesus is one of them, but people don't understand cryptocurrency partially because like in reality, cryptocurrency is just describing a perception or a reputation, and then people are like, well, that's just bullshit because it doesn't mean anything. But it's like, it really just points out that that's true at a higher level, because everything already doesn't mean anything. It's only just you think that there is this ultimate truth if you think that the standard of TV really holds a perfect standard of narration. It only stands as long as we live in a world that standardizes them and standardizes medical authority to this or whatever. And like Jesus, Jewish people use, like Jews are smart. Like Jesus is like a cryptocurrency that they maybe use a little bit. But like, I would say that for a different time, whatever I was about to say. But but there you go, I guess. Let me think if there's something else I wanted to say. Maybe that was mostly it. Like a church uses yeah, I mean, if you live in a world where perception is destandardized, which is what we're going to go towards anyway, like, nobody really gets to decide, and now, like, in reality, narration is just decided by every individual person, for real. If you're just going to observe things the way that they are, everybody, void of this TV part of it, is just walking around choosing things. And so, maybe you'd say, the world is better off as long as there is a standard. But it's like there's nothing you can do about that. Any of that. That TVs are becoming decentralized and CNNs of the world are becoming decentralized. Like we move on to the next best thing. The next best thing is just this world where money is gone by. It's not. It's only. It only exists in like physical form because of people that are able to sell you on that. It's like it has a physical existence. That's part of the con, is just this, the standard is the con, that there are standards is the con, because that's what causes this world where people are hoarding giant sums of money anyway, is because they've sold you on that they are a standard. But like a world that's becoming more destandardized is just what you see as a natural result of that. With cryptocurrency, there's like thousands of currencies that are just named as a currency, and they're all representative. And it's really like you could make cryptocurrencies that are just representations and like barely anything more than the simplest code possible, and what you have is currency. It's just like currency exists as physical when it's actually just vapid and not really there, as long as you live in a world that is more physical, that America's like, these are our physical borders, and the standard of America is thus. And so as a result, and the standard is this like $10 bill as opposed to a $14 bill, but like, you know what I mean. And I'll talk to you all. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to whatever. I'll let you know if I'm editing a episode ever. I swear. Bye.